Presentation of the economic customs regimes. The general principles. The economic customs regimes include A. The suspensive regimes. These are customs warehouses, temporary admission for active improvement, temporary admission, temporary export for outward processing, temporary export, transit, processing under customs control, B. And the drawback regime. As an important tool in promoting exports in all countries, economic customs regimes cover 5 main functions: A. The storage of goods in warehouses, B. The processing of raw materials and semi-finished products, whose compensating products are intended for export, C. The export of the goods for repair, further processing, use or display, D. The use on national territory of equipment from abroad for the production of goods for export, or for carrying out major works, E. The transit of goods from one customs office to another. The benefit of the suspensive arrangements shall be authorized only, where it is possible to identify the goods admitted therein when they are reimported, re-exported or released for consumption, either in their unaltered state or in the compensating products. The effects of economic customs regimes. Economic customs regimes provide the company with important advantages, such as A. The suspension of duties and taxes to which the goods are liable, B. The lifting of prohibitions and trade restrictions with the exception of absolute prohibitions. Operations entered into under economic customs regimes must be covered by a guarantee represented, either by the consignment of an amount fixed by the customs to the customs receiver, or by the bank guarantee or any other form of duly authorized guarantee. These operations give rise to the submission of acquitted guarantee declarations including, in addition to the goods declaration, the tenderer's and his guarantor's undertaking, to comply with the undertakings entered into. These operations may also be covered by the documents provided for in the international conventions, to which the country accedes TIR Carnet, AUTA Carnet. Excluded goods. Each of the economic customs regimes may contain specific exclusions linked to the nature of the goods, the operating procedures of these regimes, etc. Therefore, specific exclusions are specified for each scheme. Nevertheless, there is a common core for all suspensive arrangements, from which the following goods are excluded: A. Animals and goods from contaminated countries, under the conditions laid down in the legislation on animal, veterinary and plant health, B. Narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances, C. Weapons of war, parts of weapons and ammunition of war, with the exception of weapons, parts of weapons and ammunition intended for the Army, D. Writings, printed matter, drawings, posters, engravings, paintings, photographs, cliques, matrices, pornographic reproductions and any object contrary to morality or likely to disturb public order. The guarantee of economic customs regimes. Goods placed under a suspensive procedure must be covered, A. Either by receipt for security, established on the customs declaration or, on the simplified declaration form, B. Or by international documents in accordance with the models provided for in the international conventions, to which the country has acceded. The beneficiary of a suspensive regime is called a bidder. The acquittal to security includes, in addition to the detailed declaration of the goods, a joint and several undertaking by the tenderer and a guarantor to comply with the requirements of the laws, regulations and decisions specific to the customs suspensive procedure for the benefit of which the goods are declared. The receipt to bail is in the form of a customs declaration with the bidder's commitment and guaranteed by a surety organization. The commitments entered into under the economic customs regimes are of a fiscal and legal nature. A. Because they concern duties and taxes, whose payment is suspended, B. Because they refer to the customs suspensive procedure, for which the goods are declared. The acquittal by surety is a public and authentic deed, whose statements are authentic until the registration of a forgery. This receipt consists of 2 separate parts: A. The accounting part, signed by the person authorized to declare and customs freight forwarder, owner of the goods, the liability of the signatory of the declaration being limited only to offenses, which may be identified during the verification, for example, false declaration of species, origin. B. The commitments part, signed by both the tenderer and the guarantor. If the forwarder signs the commitments part, he bears the responsibility for the operation until it is fully completed. There are two possible guarantees of the commitments entered into by the bidder: A. The intervention of a guarantor, B. The deposit of a certain amount corresponding to the amount of duties and taxes payable. The intervention of a guarantor. The suspension of duties and taxes due for goods placed under economic customs procedures shall require the intervention of a guarantor. The guarantor is the guarantee required by the customs to cover the commitments of the tenderer, who has declared the importation of his goods under one of the economic regimes. Surety institutions, mainly banks, are jointly and severally liable, in the same way as principals, to pay duties and taxes, pecuniary penalties and other amounts due by the debtors they have guaranteed. However, this commitment is limited to the duties and taxes due, interest on late payment and other amounts due, as well as any financial penalties remaining possible. Transfer under economic customs regimes. Goods placed under suspensive arrangements may be transferred only after that: A. Prior authorization by customs, B. The lodging with the customs of a receipt for security with the agreement of the transfer and the joint and several liability of the transferee and a guarantor. The transfer's liability towards the customs shall not cease until after the declaration of the transfer of ownership to a third party, the presentation of the new transferee's undertaking to the customs and acceptance by the latter of that undertaking. The length of stay. Depending on the respective purpose of each of the economic customs regimes, periods of stay are fixed for each of them. These time limits shall be counted from the day on which the customs declaration is registered. Beyond the initial deadline, new deadlines granted for extensions may be granted. In principle, the tenderer, who has not regularized the accounts in question within the legal deadlines, is in an irregular situation, because he has not respected all the commitments entered into. The customs laws provide for the tenderer to keep records, in order to ensure the monitoring of commercial transactions carried out under suspensive procedures. These writings retrace: A. On the one hand, the species, quantities and values of the goods placed under the suspensive procedure concerned, and B. On the other hand, the quantities and values of the compensating products obtained in clearance and the quantities and values of the waste generated. The bidder's entries must make it possible to identify by species, quantities and values the goods in stock on their premises and those under subcontract. The links between the different economic customs regimes. Customs allows links to be made between the various suspensive regimes. Thus, when leaving the warehouse, the goods concerned may be declared under the procedure of temporary admission for active improvement, temporary admission, transit, etc. Conversely, before the expiry of the time limit for temporary admission for active improvement, for example, compensating products may be constituted as warehouses, or moved under the transit procedure or placed under the temporary admission procedure. The compensating products obtained may, pending their export, also be stored in the bonded warehouse and, on their exit, placed under the transit procedure for transport to a border office of the sender's choice.